Let's talk wrestling families. For every Bret Hart, Eddie Guerrero, or Randy Orton, there are scores of other second or third generation wrestlers who for one reason or another could never quite match the success of their elders. This week I'm looking at some of the worst second generation wrestlers of all time. There's no countdown this week because quite frankly, I could never pare this thing down to 8. History has shown it's very difficult to be the son of an all-time legend, and apparently it's even more difficult when your first name is David. Let's start with David Sammartino, son of Bruno. I mean, talk about some massive shoes to fill. Bruno carried the company that would eventually become WWE throughout the 60s and 70s. He spent a combined 11 years as world champion. His son was going to have to at least double that record to be considered in the same league. But the WWF didn't make it very easy for the guy. He was only featured prominently on the card when he was either managed by or partnered with his semi-retired father, yet turned into Jobber Deluxe when he was on his own. The announcers spent every moment of his matches bringing up his lineage and how hard it would be for him to follow in his father's footsteps. For a brief time, they actually billed him as David Bruno Sammartino. Ooh, just how cold is it in that shadow there, David? It was the mistreatment of David that led to much of the bad blood between the WWF and Bruno Sammartino. Yes, fans, this guy's why Bruno didn't go into the Hall of Fame until 2013. But really, David's failure to break out wasn't the company's fault alone. Even though his wrestling ability was sound, he just wasn't flashy enough to match what the rest of the company was morphing into by the mid-1980s. Him going against the script and submitting to jobber Ron Shaw in 1985 just to stick it to Vince McMahon was probably the craziest thing he ever did. Moving on from Sammartino to Flair. David Flair, that is. After debuting in 1999, David turned heel on his father Rick, who then himself turned heel, allowing the two to get back together. Whoa, wait a minute, all these heel turns back to back, it's getting me dizzy, I gotta sit down. Wait, I guess I'm already sitting down. David was awarded the United States Championship by the elder Flair, then WCW's kayfabe president. I can only assume David Flair's run as US champion was WCW's answer to Shane McMahon holding the European title in the WWF. The only difference is, while both were put in storylines beyond their experience, only Shane had the stage presence to make it work. So wait a minute, which of these two is the son of one of the most charismatic wrestlers of all time again? David managed to eke out a nice little career for himself in WCW and later TNA, but it was always while being buoyed by other more capable wrestlers, Crowbar, Daphne, Brian Christopher, and so on. He was briefly signed to WWE after WCW went under, though the most exposure he got there was when he got his ass beat by The Undertaker in 2001. Twice! Yeah, I think Charlotte's doing okay, all things considered. You know, I didn't want to put Curtis Axel on this list. I really didn't want to lump in the son of Mr. Perfect with everyone else here, but I just can't help it. It's not like he was buried due to a huge ego or that he's a bad wrestler. Virtually everything wrong with Axel is the fault of creative. Well, except for the Michael McGillicuddy name. Those dumb names are made by the wrestlers themselves, you know. I'm flabbergasted this man once held the Intercontinental Championship, but I'm even more shocked he held it for 5 months. It's not like it was a bad reign either. He won a lot during that time. The only other person to get so little of a push while holding the title was Big E, who beat Axel for it and held it for even longer. Wait, he was managed by Paul Heyman too? And he was part of Heyman's feud with CM Punk? What the hell happened to this guy? Despite all that hype, it's 8 shades of depressing. The most he ever got over was when he began cosplaying as Hulk Hogan, and now he can't even do that anymore. Thanks for screwing that one up for him, Hulkster. These days, he's sitting pretty as 1/4 of the social outcasts. Nothing says destined for greatness like being part of the Job Squad 2.0. Or is it 3.0? 4.0? Up next on the list is, Manu? Manu? Who the hell's Manu? Oh man, raise your hand if you forgot this guy existed. Manu, the son of Wild Samoan Alpha, seemingly had everything lined up for him when he came to WWE, but wow, what an unremarkable career. He had some good moments though, like the, well, there was that time God, I got nothing. Manu debuted in the fall of 2008 as the muscle for Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes. Somehow, in a team made up of a couple of charisma vacuums, Manu ended up being the least interesting of the three. Manu and Sim Snuka were rumored to become part of the legacy alongside Rhodes, DiBiase, and Randy Orton, but they just missed the cut. I'm guessing it's because they didn't conform to the team's dress code of tiny trunks and washboard abs. Speaking of Sim Snuka, there's another one for you. Jimmy's adopted son made his WWE debut as one half of the tag team, Deuce and Domino, what I can only assume were a pair of time-traveling greasers. Well, I guess that explains how the vaudevillains can exist in 2016 with no one taking issue. There's your precedent. After holding the tag titles on SmackDown for a bit, the team split up and the man formerly known as Deuce took his father's name. After getting stomped out of Legacy, he was almost never seen on TV again. But don't cry for old Sim, folks, because his greatest, most memorable moment was yet to come.
Wait a minute, look at this!
Sim, you had one job! Going back to Ted DiBiase, I'm not saying he was a bad wrestler, but he definitely didn't live up to his potential. What is it with children of famous, extremely charismatic wrestlers and their complete lack of inheritance of said charisma? DiBiase always came off as bland to me, both in terms of personality and in the ring. After Legacy broke up, they put the $1 Million Championship around his waist and Maurice on his arm, but it wasn't enough to make people care. Perhaps that's why he left wrestling at the age of 30. He probably saw the writing on the wall. Then again, he might not have gotten over because he wasn't paired with the right rival. I mean, think about his dad for a second. Do you think Ted DiBiase Sr. would have ever gotten as big as he did in the 80s if it weren't for his classic feud with Hulk Hogan? Ah, Hogan. There's a guy whose kids theoretically could have made it big in wrestling, but, Enter Brooke Hogan. Her time in wrestling was brief, but her exposure huge as the executive in charge of Knockouts on Impact Wrestling. Cause that's what wrestling needs, authority figures with divisions of labor. Nobody really remembers her actual matchmaking skills, but who could forget her storyline with Bully Ray? It really took off in November of 2012 when CM Punk Light, Austin Aries, revealed to the world that something was going on between Brooke and Bully. Aries crosses the line and prompts both Ray and the Hulkster to chase him off.
What is going on here? I mean, what the hell? I mean, what is this?
Yes, because if there's a better way to close out a wrestling show than with awkward, fake silent tension over an alleged fake love affair, then I don't know what is. I don't know why Hogan was being so protective of Brooke. Maybe he just wanted her all to himself? Oh god, so creepy. The angle went on for several more weeks, which gave fans more time to soak in all that great Brooke Hogan acting.
Who knows about us?
How does he know anything? There's nothing to know.
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe it's because he and everyone watching at home saw you kiss. This storyline was intertwined with the whole Aces and Eights angle, with Bully trying to gain Hulk's acceptance by fighting its members. It escalated during Brooke and Bully's wedding when the baddies crashed the nuptials. So how did it all end? With Bully Ray winning the championship and revealing he was the leader of Aces and Eights all along, even though he was beating them up for months. Impact Wrestling, because a swerve that makes sense is just a waste of time. Brooke eventually got her kayfabe divorce from Bully Ray and hightailed it out of the company shortly thereafter. Talk about someone who was only hired because of whose balls she swam out of. I mean, think about it. At least David Sammartino could wrestle. At least Manu wrestled since he was 16. At least Ted DiBiase Jr. worked in Japan before going to WWE. Brooke Hogan was useless in Impact Wrestling. What did she do to deserve a paycheck from them other than the fact that her dad was running the show?
Where's my dad? I don't want to be here anymore.
Don't worry, Brooke. Hulk was on his way out pretty soon after you left, giving you more time to hang out and oh god! Okay, we're running out of time here, so before we talk about our last subject, let's get a few more wrestlers out of the way with a quick lightning round.
Lightning round.
Oh, okay, Barry-O. Okay, son of Bob Orton Sr., brother to Bob Orton Jr., uncle to Randy Orton, big old jobber. I couldn't believe Randy Orton was doing the same O pose with his arms that Barry-O used to do. Were they trying to kill young Randy's career by proxy? John Stasiak, weird looking guy. Not sure if the bumbling idiot gimmick he had during the invasion was good or bad for him. Okay, it was a lot better than Planet Stasiak. Scott Putski. I keep confusing him for Scotty Riggs. Ooh, DJ Pringle, son of Paul Bear. Spit your damn gum out of your dad's Hall of Fame induction, you fat clod. I didn't think you'd get any tackier until I saw you pop the question using your dad's Hall of Fame ring.
That was lightning round.
Now let us conclude this review with one of the biggest, most disappointing wastes of multi-generational talent in all of wrestling. Sorry, what'd I miss? Not Eric Watts, not one of the most boring, uninteresting wrestlers who was given more opportunities to succeed as almost any wrestler in existence. Eric Watts is the son of legendary wrestler and promoter Bill Watts, who was best known for booking WCW in the early 1990s. Fresh out of college, Eric got picked up by WCW in 1992 after having trained at the power plant for only 3 months. Now, with so little experience under his belt, you would think Eric would spend a lot of time toiling in the undercard, taking his licks and paying his dues and learning about the ins and outs of professional wrestling, working his way up until finally earning the respect of the fans and his peers. But you would be wrong. In one of the biggest cases of nepotism in wrestling history, Eric was pushed by his father about as high as you could get without just giving him the world championship. Inserted into matches with guys like Rick Rude, Sting, Dr. Death, and more well before he was ready. Watts' inexperience and lanky build made him stick like a sore thumb in the land where the big boys played. Look at this drop kick. I threw a drop kick like that once and never tried again. The only difference was my dad wasn't the booker and I wasn't working Starrcade. Eric later spent some time in the mid-90s working for the WWF, right around the time Bill Watts started working for them. How weird! If you want to know whether or not Eric got special treatment in WCW, just look at how he was portrayed in the WWF when Bill wasn't the only man in charge. This time he was one half of Techno Team 2000, the team of the future. This is how Vince McMahon thought people would dress in 5 years. Visionary Vince, folks! Troy and Travis managed to last a full year in the F before getting cut. Eric Watts would go on to find employment for several more years in WCW and TNA. But no matter what he did, that guy was never going to escape what he did in the early 90s. He was never going to escape all those years spent getting pushed down everyone's throats before being ready just because of who his dad was. He was never going to escape that drop kick. Watts might have had a more successful career if his progression in WCW was a bit more gradual, but being exposed so early left a bad taste in the mouths of wrestlers and fans alike. And that's why Eric Watts is one of the worst second-generation wrestlers of all time. Who are your picks for the worst wrestling progenies? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.